Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Rachel and today I wanted to talk to you guys about some of my favorite books of all time. Being a newbie here on BookTube, I figured what better way to get to know me than to find out what my favorite books are. That's how I have connected with booktubers over the years, how I've come to find some of my favorite people to follow. And I think it'll just hopefully make us that much closer. So I want to jump in. We'll go through, I think I have 7 here. So this certainly isn't the most comprehensive list, but this is some of the top tier all-time favorites from all the years of reading. If you watched my BookTube newbie tag video, I mentioned in there that I have read across most genres, and I think you'll see a lot of that here. There's a little bit of everything. Yeah, let's dive right in. Okay, so the first book on this list, if you have been living under a rock, you may not have heard of it lately. I think I actually found this book before it got big. I'm gonna call that. But it is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. This has recently been made into a mini series on HBO. Which I have not watched because I don't think anything could top this book. But I love this book. This is a sci-fi dystopian book about the world as we know it essentially being eradicated because of a flu pandemic. Sound familiar? In it we follow 2 timelines. One in the timeline where the flu pandemic has started and kind of moving forward, and then one that's about 20 years in the future with this new world where about 99% of the population has died because of this pandemic. And we're following a little girl who was kind of front and center in the previous timeline. She's now grown up. It's about 20 years later, like I said, and she is part of a traveling Shakespeare troupe that performs for the little pockets of the population that are still alive and thriving across the United States. So it's really just a beautiful story. I love the 2 timelines. I wasn't sure when I first got into it if I was going to like the current timeline. I didn't understand how this Shakespearean troupe would really relate to a post-pandemic world, but Emily St. John Mandel does a phenomenal job just weaving this story together beautifully. It's one of these with multiple threads and you're not quite sure how things are going to end up relating, and everything is tied together so beautifully in the end. I loved the visions that she gave of what the post-pandemic world would look like, and very slowly. It's easy to imagine what it might be like 20 years in the future, but these very small little tidbits that she gives us, at one point she's talking about an airport, and I would have never thought of that, what an airport might look like in a post-pandemic world where everything is stopped and most of the population is dead. Like, what would that turn into? What would that look like? I just thought this was an absolutely beautiful story. There is a little bit of, not thriller, but maybe a little thriller, I guess. A very small thread of something like that in the middle of it. But ultimately, I loved this because it was just very subtle, very chilling descriptions of what the end of society would look like, and I just thought it was a beautifully, beautifully woven story. I have yet to pick up her latest release, actually, so that is on my short list for 2022. But Station 11, I can't speak to the miniseries, but the book, chef's kiss. It's amazing. I love it, love it, love it, love it. Pick it up if you have not yet. Okay, the next book on this list is probably one of the oldest books I actually own, and you'll be able to tell by the copy and what its current state is. It's probably also the book that I think got me into thrillers. It is Intensity by Dean Koontz. You guys, if you have not read this book and you are a fan of thrillers, run, don't walk. Go get this. It's amazing. Okay, so it was released in 1995. It's an oldie, but you'd never know it. This follows a woman named China. She is, I think, in her mid-20s, and she doesn't have any, I think she doesn't, it has been a bit since I've read it, but she doesn't, I don't believe she has any family, but she has a best friend, and she goes to this best friend's house to stay with her family for like a long weekend or something like that. And she's up at night, she can't sleep, and she hears a noise, and a man is driving a car up to the house, and just all hell breaks loose. He proceeds to break into this house, wreak havoc on this family. And China jumps in his, I think it's an RV that he's driven up. She jumps in his RV or his truck or whatever it is, and chaos ensues. It is every bit of intense that the title lends itself to be. It is fast-paced, absolutely edge of your seat, bite your nails off, pull your hair out, can't put it down, terrifying. This book has the absolute most terrifying bad guy that I have ever read in a book. I will never forget his name, Edgar Vess. Guarantee you read this, you will not forget it either. He is an absolutely terrifying character. I cannot speak enough about how good this book is. I mean, look at this binding. It's completely broken. I literally think there are pages coming out of this book. I clearly paid $1.75 for it at some used bookstore a million years ago. Yeah, this book is absolutely amazing. Best thriller I have ever read. Absolute scariest character. But it's phenomenal, you guys. Pick it up if you're into thrillers. Like I said, I know it's a little old school, 1995, but you wouldn't know it was 1995. Maybe you would, because I don't think there's any like cell phones, but it's awesome. Absolutely pick it up. So good. Edge of your seat. Okay, so changing gears a little bit. The next book that has become a favorite of mine is a more recent release. I should have looked this up. So it's 2020, and it is The Two Lives of Lydia Bird by Josie Silver. This is but it's a romance, a fiction romance, about our protagonist, Lydia Bird, who is in a relationship. I believe she's engaged to a guy named Freddie, and on her birthday, he like runs out to the store or something, and he's hit by a car and killed. And it's just obviously absolutely devastating for her. She is a total wreck, and she ends up being prescribed like sleeping pills. And she realizes after she takes the first pill that when she goes to sleep, she actually wakes up in an alternative reality where Freddie is still alive. So she gets to live these two lives simultaneously. When she falls asleep with these sleeping pills, she gets to live out what her life would have been with her fiance. And then when she wakes up, she kind of lives in this reality where he is dead and is struggling to deal with the grief of that, juggling both lives, really figuring out how to live in her grief, but also knowing that this alternative reality isn't sustainable because she's, I mean, it only happens when she's sleeping. So it's a really, really beautiful love story between these two people. And then a love story, honestly, really with Lydia and her sister, and her friends who become her support system in the reality where Freddie is not alive. So I cried through most of this. I mean, literally every few pages, I think I started crying. If you have any experience with loss and with grief, and you know, this is one that's really gonna tug at your heartstrings. I loved Lydia's character. I loved how she dealt with these two different lives, and it was really interesting to see too how she lived in the life where Freddie was still alive, knowing how tenuous their life together really was, knowing that it could end any second, knowing that eventually it would. It's just a beautifully written story about love and loss and friendship and second chances, getting the chance to, you know, live two simultaneous lives that are very different. Absolutely loved this one. Pick it up if you want a tearjerker. It's an awesome, awesome story. All right, next book on this list, taking another dramatic 180 turn, is Bossypants by Tina Fey. I am a huge Tina Fey fan. I think she is hilarious in everything she does. I think her years on SNL were like the best that they have. And this is basically her memoir, along with a collection of essays and just like funny like quips and things that she's come up with. So we follow her in her childhood, into her experience in high school and college, and then working with Second City, and then how she worked her way up to being head writer at SNL. It really follows her talking about this golden age of, you know, women in comedy during her time at SNL, and how wonderful it was to work with all of those female writers. The audiobook is incredible. I would absolutely recommend picking up the audiobook. I have it on audio. I bought it from Audible several years ago, and I've probably listened to it an embarrassing amount of times. I mean, dozens, literally dozens of times. She narrates it herself. If you listen to the audiobook, you get a lot of the sketches. She is just so funny. She talks a lot about her work on the sketches as Sarah Palin during the 2008 election, which it was a really interesting experience for her, especially because she was a head writer. She wasn't an actor on the show. So it's just great. She is funny. I think she's amazing. Like I said, pick up the audiobook version of this. I think if you get the book version, you get pictures, but I mean, just go to your library and look at the pictures. It's way, 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 way better as an audiobook. Okay, the next book I want to talk about is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. This book, I know probably most people have heard of this because I think this was a pretty big booktube sensation. But this is a sci-fi, total like cat and mouse story. We follow our protagonist. I believe his name is Jason? Oh God, I should have checked this. But we follow our protagonist. He is a physics professor, and I should have checked this, you guys. Jason, it was Jason. Okay, so we follow Jason. He's a physics professor. He's on his way home from work one day, and he is abducted. When he wakes up, he is in a place where he doesn't recognize. I believe he's like in a lab. He's somewhere he doesn't recognize, and he's actually in a version of reality that he is not familiar with. So he seeks out his wife, and they've never been married. His son does not exist in this version of reality. And we just kind of go from there, figuring out what the heck happened and how he got here and what is going on. It really is a super fast-paced, cat and mouse style story, really through time, as cheesy as that sounds. I am totally into this idea of living multiple lives. I talk to my husband about this all the time. I'm just fascinated by this idea that we could be living multiple lives, and this explores that theory, that every decision that we make bands off into another timeline where our lives look completely different because of a choice we made. So this follows that. It's really, really, really fast-paced, keep you on the edge of your seat. Blake Crouch is a really awesome sci-fi writer. I know he has a really extensive backlist. I have not explored any of his backlist, but that is a goal of mine to get to. But this book and his next book, the one that came out after this, Recursion, are two favorites for sure. He's a phenomenal writer. Yeah, it's an awesome story. Go check it out if you haven't already. I found this, if you can believe it, at the dollar store. I mean, they were selling this at the dollar store, dude. Always check out your dollar store book section. You never know what treasures you're gonna find there. But also check out this book. Really great. This is also a great sci-fi for beginners. There isn't a lot that'll go over your head. It's not too, you know, whatever. I don't want to say nerdy because I think that's really not a very nice term. Really offensive. So it's just a great sci-fi for beginners. If you're not super into sci-fi, you're not quite sure where to start, Dark Matter is a phenomenal place to start because there's also a great thriller aspect to it, great story. You won't be able to put it down. Super good. Okay, the next book is certainly, I believe, a more polarizing booktube book, and that is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I do not have the dust jacket on this because I actually use this book as decoration. I just think it's so beautiful. This one, along with her other one, I use as like stacking decoration. But anyway, The Night Circus, Erin Morgenstern. If you have not been swept away by the phenomenon that is The Night Circus, then you should know that this is a fantasy magical realism book that essentially follows a circus, but not in the way, you know, we're thinking, this Barnum Bailey circus. This is a circus with real magic. This book is just pure magic, pure imagination. I love it. I believe it's touted as a romance. If you were to look it up, I would argue against that. There is a romance element. There's a romance thread to it. But the romance is really secondary to really just the study of the people and the event that is this circus. We have two main characters who are essentially real magicians that are performing magic in the circus, that are always trying to outdo each other. That's kind of where our romance comes into play. But other than that, this is just the imagery alone in this story. Oh my gosh. A lot of people I know think that Erin Morgenstern's writing is a little too flowery. And to that, I would agree, it is very flowery, but that is the type of story I like. That is super immersive. I can imagine myself there. I can picture, I can like taste being there. I want to be there. I want to be in the Night Circus. If it arrives in my town, I'll be first in line. It makes you believe in magic. This book is just beautiful. It's just absolutely beautiful. You just want to live there. I want to crawl into this book and like wrap it around me. I mean, that's the best way to put it, in my opinion. But yeah, the Night Circus. It's just beautiful. It just, ugh. I just love this book so much. I don't even know. I'm not even doing like a great job describing it. I just love this book so much. It just sweeps you away. It takes you to another world. But it's just so immersive. It's so beautiful. It's so magical. Really, the true romance is with the circus itself. Honestly, like the secondary romance in this between the people, I could take it really bad. The romance is with the circus itself and falling in love with what this entity is. Oh, it's just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And you know what? So is the book. So if you need some decoration, you heard it here first. Use this book. All right, and the last book I want to talk about today is another newer release. Again, I should have looked this up earlier. I believe this one came out last year. I don't know. Yeah, I think last year. But anyway, I have not heard a lot of buzz on this book on BookTube, and I am just floored by that because I think this book is so amazing. And that is the 100 Years of Lenny and Margot. This is a contemporary fiction, and we are following two women who are living in a hospital. So we are following Lenny. She is 17. She is terminally ill with cancer. And then we have Margot, who is 83, and I believe she's in the hospital for a heart condition. But they are both admitted to the hospital and spend all of their time there, and they meet in an art class and just form this unbreakable friendship, or they realize, I guess, that they have 100 years of life between the two of them, and they decide that they're going to paint their entire life experiences in 100 paintings. And you really just travel back through time, especially with Margot, because she's 83, so she's lived this very long life. She has lots of experiences, and you really just live her story and her life, and it's almost reminiscent of Evelyn Hugo, where we're hearing about her life and her relationships and her love and loss, and there obviously isn't as much to learn about Lenny, but she is such a unique character. She is such a breath of fresh air. She has this really adorable relationship with the like hospital chaplain. You just come to love them together. This one is a major tearjerker. I mean, from the outset, you know that these two women are both very ill. Margot's life has not been easy, but it is a beautiful life. There's a part in Margot's life, oh my gosh, girl, a lot of works. Okay. Yeah, it's just a beautiful story about love and loss and really what true friendship looks like, and that it doesn't have to mean, you know, a friendship is boundless. It doesn't matter who you are, how old you are, that you can make a connection with people and really, really change people's lives. And it's just a beautiful book. I cannot believe this doesn't get more hype on BookTube. Everyone that I have recommended this to has loved it. So yeah, go check this one out. I believe this is a debut novel from this author, Marianne Cronin. Yes, this is a debut novel. So I cannot wait to read more from her. This is absolutely heartbreaking, but if you need a good cry, man, this is it. This will do it. I promise you won't be disappointed. Okay guys, well that concludes this video. You have hopefully gotten to know a little bit more about me based on what some of my favorite books are. If you have any other recommendations based on some of these that you've seen, please drop them below. If you've read any of these and you love them as well, also drop that below. But yeah, hopefully you know a little bit more about me. Yeah, and thanks for tuning in. And hopefully I will see you guys soon.